So if I take it from the top, then we'll follow on through. The first thing is, there is nothing in any organisation that is accomplished without its people. We wouldn't be here without the Mum and Working team. All of us do our own little bit and bring this together. It just wouldn't happen without a team. The talent within your company will determine revenue, growth, brand, reputation. And in order to ensure success, investing in and focusing on talent is crucial. The first step of this investment is your recruitment campaign. We know all about that. A well-worded advert established from the off. Your company values and expectations will attract the right team members. A generic advert with non-specific description may well gain a great deal of interest, but you're going to spend hours sorting through your applicants. There's going to be loads of them. So, if we look at job title, you're on a website, preferably Mum and Working for your recruitment. Couldn't be Arthur's, but you know, we're the best. You can see the top. Home-based children's activities website manager nationwide, what's on 4 kids activities. Is that a job? Nah, not so much. That's a description. So the SEO guys were talking before about when people Google for jobs. They're not going to be Googling for a home-based children's activities website manager nationwide, what's on kids activities. They're going to be Googling for exactly what they want to do. Children's activities website manager. Keep those job titles to what you really expect the person that you're recruiting to be. Best suited to, even if the job you offer would suit all walks of life, do you really want them? Anyone aged over 18 is suitable for this job. We see that so many times. The team of Mum and Working will say, who would you like? Who would you like working with you? Anyone over the age of 18? No, you wouldn't. Seriously, you wouldn't. See this one. If you have a good general business background, want to have your own flexible business, it goes on, it lists the attributes, it lists what you want in that person. So when you start recruiting, have in your head, what do I want these guys to be able to do? Do I want them to be chatty? Do I want them to know their SEO, know their social media? Do I want them to know sales? There's loads of different things, loads of different people that can bring different skills to your company. Have it in your mind what you want that specific person to bring to your company. Another crucial thing for adding your recruitment advert, everything. Social media, it's there again. Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, there's a whole load out there. Link them in. You will find that you'll get job applicants and you have a quick Google and you check them out on Facebook or you check out their Twitter feed. Those job applicants are doing the same thing for you. They're looking at your Facebook page, they're looking at your Twitter feed. So have it there, represent your company values once again, and make sure that that's the first thing they find out about you. So they suss you out immediately. Right, here we go. We're over to Laura now. She knows all about HR. So, you've got your team, you've got your interviewees, you know who you want, you've welcomed them on board. How early should we start to think about HR? Laura, over to you.
Thanks, Zena. I think Zena's just mentioned when you've got your team, actually start thinking about HR before you've got your first member of your team. I think that's really important. And I think in our experience, we work with startups, people just thinking about employing their first people, right up to people that are really established, that have got around about 100 employees. But what we always say is be really clear from day one what the job description looks like. So Zena's done a fantastic job about talking to you about what do you want the job title to look like, but actually draw that down a bit deeper and think about the job description. And when you're thinking about the job description, don't just think about the technical skills that you need, think about the type of person you want to join your business. That's really important. I think some of the other things to think about when you're thinking about employing that first person or your next person or your third person is what you're going to pay them. We're going to come on to that a bit more detail, but think about what salary you're going to offer them. The other thing is to think about is that when you're looking to employ that first person or you've got a number in your team already, You need to start thinking about an HR provider that can help you write the boring stuff like the contracts that unfortunately have to be in place, as we know. One of the things that we quite often find from people, clients that we work with, they don't realise that every single employee has to have a contract of employment issued to them within 8 weeks of them starting employment. So really think about that from day one. As soon as you've got that first person starting, make sure you've got a contract ready to send them. If you haven't, find a really good person that can draft one for you. The other thing for us is, we say within 8 weeks. If you don't, just by the by, I hate all this scary talk, but you can actually get a claim against you for breach of contract if you don't give an employee a contract. But the key thing is, if you send it to them just before they're about to start, then you start that employment relationship on the right way, so they know exactly what you want from them. You know, they're really clear about what's expected of them. So we would say, from a best practice point of view, make sure they get the contract early on.
Okay, so how difficult is it to employ people?
And everybody thinks it's really difficult, but it's not. You expect an HR person to say that. But for us, it's just really all about having a really good plan in place. So all of these lovely speakers before me, they've all talked about having a plan. And we say exactly the same thing: have an HR plan in place, or a people plan, whatever language you want. So when you're planning your first employees, I've already spoken about the contract, make sure you have that. The other things to think about are, have some statutory policies. There are some legal ones that you need to have. The key ones being a discipline and a grievance policy. So have a think about what those are going to look like and what's a good fit for you. So in other words, don't just download something from the internet. Pick and write a discipline and grievance policy that's really right for you and your business. Another thing to think about that we find that people don't necessarily do, but it's a legal obligation, is to have a right to work check in place. So there seems to be a bit of sort of misnomer out there that you only need to do that if you're going to employ a foreign individual. Actually, that's not the case. Everybody has to have a right to work check. So please make sure you do that. It's a horrible process to go through if you don't do it. Another one for us is around references, and it's really difficult to get a reference. And those of you that have tried to get one on somebody you're about to employ will find it really, really difficult, because there isn't a legal obligation for an employer to give a reference. You can give just what we call a statement of employment, which is they started on this date and this was their job. But actually, for you as an employer, you need to know a bit more than that, because you need to make sure you're taking the right person on. So what you can do instead is go to a really good reference provider, which we can talk to you about later if you want to come and find us, where they'll do identity checks for you, they'll do education checks, they'll do qualification checks, all the things that might be important to your business. So it's an investment, but it's a really important and very crucial thing to do. I think the other thing to consider, which a lot of people forget, is think about the culture of your business. I've touched on it already, but who is the right person for you? Don't just go out, pick the person that's got the best skills. So you might be interviewing and you've got down to your last 3 and you're thinking, well, they're all sort of just about as good as each other. But really think about who's a really good fit for you. How do they behave? What skills have they got? Are they a good communicator? Are they going to be really good on the phone with their customers? Think about all those things. It's a bit more than, can they just write a blog or can they just do this? When you're also thinking about it, think about where your business is going. Where are you going to take it? How quickly are you going to grow? Is that person going to be able to go on that journey with you, or are they only going to be good enough for those first 2 or 3 months? So think about all those things. Another thing to think about, I think, is flexibility that you might be able to offer your employees. I'm hoping that as mums, you all would want an employer of your own to employ you on a flexible basis, and we certainly do that with all of our staff. So one of the reasons why we're here today is that we absolutely can completely support flexible working, and we've won awards because of that as well. So I would advocate that in this day and age, that's the way to go.
So, why is it important to get the right people in place?
I think it's as easy to say as they'll really help build your business. So we've already spoken today, some speakers have spoken about, the business might be about you, but actually I think it's bigger than that. I think the business is about the people that you employ. So what you want is someone that's going to be able to project exactly the same image as you are. And if you think about the reputation that your business has got, and the reputation that you have with your customers, you want your employee to be able to replicate that. So you want them also to be really passionate about your business, as passionate as you are. I know that's quite difficult, but if you're recruiting the right people with the right attitude, they will have that. We're really fortunate that we've got 15 hugely passionate people, and if you can get that, you're going to get a majorly successful business. I think the other thing as well is that, unfortunately, we do occasionally take on the wrong people. The key for me is if you get that bad apple, and you recognise early on in the process that they are, is to manage them out of the business as quickly as you possibly can do. And the reason for that is if you're a small business, when you have someone that perhaps isn't operating or hasn't got the same culture or same ethics as you've got the same values, that's sort of, I hate to use the word poison, but sometimes they can be quite poisonous in your business, and you need to get them out as quickly as you can do.
So, how do you decide how much you should pay someone?
Okay. We've had clients, interestingly, that want to go out there and they say, right, I want to pay the absolute top dollar and I want the best person. And interestingly enough, sometimes we say, don't do that because you might be setting yourselves up to fail in the future. So one of the key things for us is do some salary benchmarking right early on in the process. So before you even place the ads with Mum and Working, think about the salary that you actually want to pay them. There's a great tool out there. We use a tool called PayScale, which again I'm happy to talk to you about over lunch break or later on. Why that's good is not only will it just say, if you just put in office manager, it won't come up with a salary. It needs a lot more detail. So you'll put things in like what are the skills that are required to be for an office manager, where am I based, how many years experience have they got, etc., etc. So get all that right. And the other thing for me, right at the beginning I said don't overpay people. A little while ago I spoke to you about what's the growth that your business is going to go on, what's the journey. So start thinking about when might I first be taking my first team leader on or my first supervisor. So think about the salary you're going to pay them, because if you overpay your first employee, you're going to have in quite a lot of trouble going from there onwards. So think about all those things as well. One other thing, I've spoken about flexible working, but one of the things we're coming across an awful lot at the moment is that in certain sectors there's a lot of skill shortage in some industries. So be careful that you've got some other options to offer them other than just pay. So think about what your other package can be.
Okay, there's our girl.
This is my favourite moment.
What happens if it doesn't work out and you have taken on the wrong person?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to think if you followed a really good recruitment process that's not going to happen, but unfortunately we live in the real world. So my key tip is to address the issues as quickly as you can do. Another thing to think about is I spoke about some statutory policies that you need in place, but it's really worth thinking also about what does the induction period look like? What is that structured? What's it going to look like for the individual? And that's not just, where are the fire exits and what time are my tea breaks. It's a bit more than that. It's all about, what's my training going to look like for the first 8-10 weeks. So make sure you've got that in place, and then that sets the expectation for the individual from early on as well. The other policy that would be really useful to have in place is to think about what does managing performance look like. So how am I going to get the best out of this person? Or if they're not going to perform well, what can I do about it? What structure can I follow? And I think quite often people get put off by employing people. There's a bit of a myth out there that's really difficult to dismiss somebody, but I just want to sort of allay your fears. It's not. So long as you've got the structures in place, you've got the right policies, you take some really good advice. If you've got somebody that isn't working out for you, make sure you get some fantastic advice, and you can get rid of them. And most of the time, both parties leave without a sour taste in their mouth. Sometimes they want to leave themselves if things aren't working out.
Okay, so what are the pitfalls of not being fully aware of your responsibilities as an employer?
Yeah, we see quite a bit of this, unfortunately. Katie, one of my team, she's at the back somewhere. Hi, Katie. Katie quite often is quite often the sort of first port of call on the phone when our clients ring in. And so we took on a client a couple of months ago. And what we started to see, we had the same manager ringing in on a sort of regular basis, sort of about every second week, and we were starting to see a pattern of sort of queries that were coming through, and we're thinking, this is a bit strange. And can't go into too much sensitive detail because obviously it's not appropriate today, but I think the easiest way to describe it is that he was having a lot of issues with a member of his team who wasn't performing to the right level. So we started talking to him about all these things, and he obviously sort of was feeling really uncomfortable with the process. So we decided to go out and visit him, which we do a lot of, so we went out to his workplace, talked him through the policies again to give him that confidence to be able to sort of deal with it. But what we then found was actually, it was a bit more than just about having the knowledge, it was actually about him having the confidence to have those difficult conversations. I think all of us, and most of us in the room, are probably business owners or senior positions within the company. And it's one of the hardest things to do, even from an HR professional, trust me, it's a difficult conversation to have. So what we did was we spent some time with him and did a bit of informal coaching in terms of giving him the confidence to have those difficult conversations. And the great result was that because he had the confidence and because he then had the knowledge about how to follow the process, he did a brilliant job of managing this individual. And instead of it being a bad situation, he thought at the beginning of the conversation we were going to end up saying he's got to go, but that wasn't the case at all. So by working really closely with him, what we did was manage to turn that situation around, and now he's got a fantastic employee. So yeah, there are pitfalls. If you do get it wrong, the ramifications unfortunately are that horrible word employment tribunal, which we all hate. They do happen. You hear lots of things in the press around these £250,000 awards. Don't want to frighten you, ladies and gents, they don't happen very often, but we do see tribunals happen. The average award at the moment is 13 grand. That's a lot of money to a small business. So my advice is get it right from day one, get your contracts, policies in place, take some sound advice, and then it won't go wrong at all.
What are the most common problems or greatest challenges encountered?
Yeah, I suppose I would say we probably, and Katie might tell me differently, but we probably spend around 50% of our time speaking to our clients around somebody constantly being late, or someone being sick, or somebody that's not performing well, or perhaps there's some sort of inappropriate behaviour in the workplace. We do have lovely conversations with our clients as well. It's not all about those awful things, but that probably is around about 50%. I don't want that to put you off employing people, because I've just explained a situation where you can turn that situation around, and we have some really positive conversations with our people. The key to, when you've got those tricky things, the absolute key is if you've got someone coming in late, or they're sick, or they're not performing to the level you want, is make a record of it. And that sounds really formal, I don't mean it to be. It can be as simple as making a note, or having a real simple Excel spreadsheet where you just annotate something. And the reason why I'm suggesting you do that is quite often we'll get a phone call where a manager's sort of had this member of staff that's taken like 5 days off in the last month, and he's just got to the point where he's at his absolute wit's end, really frustrated. I want this person out of their business, they're causing massive problems. And we'll then say, so have you got it recorded? Well, no, but I'm sure he's had 5 days off. So our point is that we can help, and any of your own HR support people can help, if you make sure you've got consistent records. So my biggest tip to you is make sure you've got that in place, and it doesn't have to be complicated, it can be something as simple as a spreadsheet.
Okay, so what do you do if you have a problem?
Hopefully don't do this. I think the key thing is that don't bury your head in the sand. That's where we come across a lot of the problems. So try and be proactive. So if you have got a problem, nip it in the bud. That's the absolute key thing. Don't let it dribble along for weeks or even sometimes days on end, because it can be a problem. So you'll hear things about grievance procedures. Don't let it get to that stage where you've got a grievance or a discipline. Nip it in the bud, because for a small business it can be sort of really a terrible situation to be in. So my advice is to build a really strong relationship with a good HR provider, and make sure you've got one that's proactive. So what do I mean by that? So I mean somebody who's on your side, wants your business to succeed, wants to work in partnership with you. Somebody who, if you like, one of the things we do is we'll have diary times for each of our client in the diary. So once a month we will speak, or once a week, however the client wants it, at certain times. And quite often our clients will say, well, I don't really need to speak to you tomorrow. And we'll say, no, it'd be really good if we did have a chat. And the reason we do that is because quite often out of the conversation, we'll just ask a really innocent question, like, you know, how's Jack getting on his probation period? And all of a sudden that manager or the MD goes, oh yeah, well actually, it's not working out quite how I hoped. And you know, I wish I'd handled that conversation a bit better last week, and what should I have done better? And just by us having that conversation with you, we're immediately sort of giving you the confidence to deal with it. Whereas if you wait and go to an HR provider who's only reactive, you're not going to get that. So therefore, going back to that whole thing about nipping things in the bud, that's not necessarily going to happen. So just make sure you get the right HR support around you.
So, has government legislation around HR changed much?
Oh gosh, yes. Not my favourite subject, this one, because as most of you will know as business owners, it can be a real hindrance. The one thing I will say is in recent years, there's been a lot of work done about making it a bit more simplistic for employers. So thankfully these days most changes in HR only happen about twice a year. There are a few exceptions, but if you keep the 2 months in your mind, which is either April or October, that's where most of the changes happen. So if nothing else is on your radar, just have a bit of a think around that. So there's been a number of things that have recently happened at the beginning of this month. None of them particularly exciting, but they are actually really important things. So I've just touched on a few things here that you might find interesting. I think everyone's going to get these slides, aren't they, Zena? So you'll have this there. But if you are what's deemed to be a sponsoring employer, so in other words, you're recruiting migrant workers, there's a thing called Tier 2, which is what you may have heard about, the points-based immigration system. What's actually happened there is you've now got obligation to pay a minimum salary of 30 grand, which is a lot of money. But what they've actually done now, they've phased it in and made it a bit better for you. So from this autumn, it's now it's going to be 25,000, and it's now not going to rise to 30,000 until April of next year. So the government are trying to make things a bit easier for us as business owners. The second one is about the national minimum wage. I think most of you probably know about this. So it comes in different bandings. So if you've got someone employed between 21 and 25, you should be paying £6.95 now. So just have a quick check in your records, see what you're paying. You've got someone that's between 18 and 21, £5.55, and so on and so on. The good thing is the national living wage hasn't changed, so that all the regulations around that remain the same. And the last one that I picked up here, those of you that are have already gone through pensions auto enrolment or are about to, and each and every one of you will have had to at some stage, they're making it a bit easier for us now. They're aligning it with the tax year. So where you would have had to have an increase in this October, you now don't have to do that until April of next year. So that's the key things. There's loads of other stuff, but I've just picked out the key ones there.
What's the return on investment in HR?
Oh, I get asked this one every day. Why should we use you, etc. I think that's a really good question, because HR's a cost. Using a finance director's a cost. So think about all those things when you're looking to set your business up, or when you're looking to outsource. You've got to think about what's the return. What am I going to get? There's just two words actually. The best return on investment you're going to get is employee engagement.
That's the next one. What is employee engagement?
Okay. I've tried to use the most simple term. Hopefully most of you can see that. So for me, it's when an organisation values their employees and the work that they do, and the employees value their organisation and the work that they do. So that in its most simplistic terms is what employee engagement is about. It's much deeper than that. It's a half-hour conversation on our own. But what I want to try and get your heads around is employee engagement is more than just having happy employees. you know, you probably have got lots of happy employees, but what you want is then that real passion about why do they get up in the morning, why do they want to come to work, why do they want to work for you. So if you think about the return on investment that you'll get from having a really engaged workforce, some of the simplistic ones to think about are, so some of the stats and research we've done are around sickness and absence. So the average number of sick days per annum for a non-engaged workforce in the UK is currently 6.19 to be precise. But if you've got a truly engaged workforce, it's only 2.69 days. So think about the benefits of that. Those people really want to come to work. I think the other thing to think about is you're going to have less staff turnover. People will be engaged with your business. They want to be with it. They want to go on that business journey with you. And therefore, because of that, you're going to have better productivity from your employees as well. So for me, that's the key thing. Make sure you get some good support around you about how you can make sure you've got a really good engaged workforce. Thanks.
Okay, and that's us. Come and find us.